Why do women statistically press the eject button on relationships more often than men? Why is it that the person who once whispered, "forever," is often the same one standing in court filing for divorce papers? This isn't just coincidence or bad luck. There's a pattern, a trend so consistent that it demands our attention. In many studies, nearly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. And when you focus specifically on college-educated women, that number climbs even higher. That's not a small discrepancy. It's a massive red flag, flashing a neon sign that something deeper is happening beneath the surface of traditional relationships. So, what's really going on? Why do women decide to pack up, walk away, and leave men wondering what just hit them? The answers are layered, psychological, emotional, cultural, and sometimes a little uncomfortable to confront. But once you understand the full picture, your perspective on breakups, divorce, and even long-term partnership will never be the same. Let's start with the first brutal truth: emotional dissatisfaction. Women crave emotional connection like plants crave sunlight. They want to feel heard, validated, understood on a daily, consistent basis. When that emotional intimacy dries up, it's like living in a desert with no water. You can survive without it for a while, but eventually dehydration sets in. Men, on the other hand, are more likely to stay in a relationship even if they're not emotionally fulfilled, because many men tend to compartmentalize. They might bury their loneliness or frustration, convincing themselves that as long as the external aspects of life are stable, financial security, physical intimacy, they're fine. They tolerate loneliness inside the relationship because they believe it's just part of the package. Women, however, are more emotionally attuned and less willing to accept that kind of emotional starvation. They sense it acutely and reach a breaking point. I've given enough. I need more, or I'm out. But wait, things get even more complex. Here's a spicy truth. Societal expectations and shifting gender roles have transformed the landscape of relationships. In the past, women had fewer options. Economic dependence on men, social norms, limited career opportunities, all of these factors often kept women in unhappy marriages. Staying was sometimes a matter of survival or social acceptance. Today, that's all changed. Women are now highly educated, financially independent, and socially empowered. They no longer need to endure a toxic relationship out of necessity. They can leave because they want a relationship that fulfills them emotionally and otherwise. The choice isn't weakness, it's freedom. Now, let's flip the coin and examine why men and women break up for different reasons. Men are more likely to leave when the sexual connection diminishes or disappears entirely. For many men, sex is a key component of intimacy. If that's gone, they may feel disconnected and disengage. Women, on the other hand, often tolerate a decline in physical intimacy longer, possibly because they see sex as intertwined with emotional connection. But when women do decide to leave, it's typically after a prolonged period of unmet emotional needs. Imagine a man sitting in silence, convinced everything is okay, while behind the scenes, she's counting the days until she can finally walk away. She's been silently waiting, planning, and emotionally preparing for her exit. Here's an unsettling fact. Studies show that in many relationships, men report being happy at the very same time women report dissatisfaction. How can this be? The answer lies in how each gender measures happiness. Men often equate happiness with low conflict and the absence of problems. If she's not yelling or arguing, he perceives that everything is fine. Women, however, seek growth, meaningful communication, and emotional richness. They want to evolve together, share experiences, and feel deeply connected. Without that sense of growth and understanding, the relationship feels stagnant, no matter how peaceful it appears on the surface. When stagnation persists, women tend to interpret it as a sign that the relationship has run its course. Let's explore resentment, a silent, simmering force that quietly erodes relationships over time. Imagine small disappointments accumulating like bricks. He forgets her birthday, dismisses her feelings, zones out during conversations, brushes off her concerns. Individually, these moments seem insignificant, but collectively, they form an emotional brick wall that blocks intimacy. When she feels emotionally checked out, it's game over. Divorce becomes not just an option, but the inevitable outcome. Her emotional withdrawal seals the deal. Another critical factor is the willingness to seek help. Women are generally more open to therapy, counseling, or couples coaching. When issues arise, they're more likely to say, "Let's talk to someone," or "We need help." Men, however, often resist, believing that problems should be solvable within themselves or the relationship without outside intervention. They may see therapy as a sign of weakness or failure. When unresolved issues pile up, the woman often finds herself fighting a losing battle, trying to fix what feels broken, while the man remains unaware or unconcerned. Fighting alone becomes exhausting, and eventually she reaches a breaking point. "I can't do this anymore." Biology also plays a role. Women are wired with stronger oxytocin bonds, hormones that foster attachment and emotional connection. This biological wiring makes betrayal, neglect, or emotional disconnection feel far more painful for women. When a woman perceives consistent unappreciation or emotional neglect, her biology turns that pain into a sense of urgency. It's as if her brain screams, "Leave now or this will destroy you." Men often don't register that alarm until it's too late, which is why many women leave only after years of silent suffering. Now, here's a paradox that complicates the narrative. Rising societal standards. Society today encourages women to demand more love, more respect, more partnership. That's a positive evolution. But higher expectations also mean increased disappointment when reality falls short. A woman in 1950 might have stayed in a marriage because that's just how it is, accepting limitations and compromises. A woman in 2025? She's more likely to ask herself, "If this relationship doesn't serve me, why am I here?" Her standards have evolved, and she refuses to settle for less. And here's a crucial insight. Most women don't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to divorce. They plan it, quietly, carefully, over months or even years. They imagine a different life, rehearse the conversations, and map out their escape route. When they finally say, "I want out," they're already mentally gone, long before the official breakup. For men, the shock is profound. It's like a bombshell. But for her, it's old news. This leads us to a profound question. Are women leaving more because men are failing them, or because women's standards have simply evolved? The answer is both. Women leave when their needs aren't met, but those needs are now broader, deeper, and more nuanced than ever before. Men often believe, "I provide, I'm loyal, I don't cheat, that should be enough." But for many women, emotional neglect, lack of growth, and indifference are forms of betrayal just as damaging as infidelity. Let's bring in psychological theory. Ever heard of the exit versus voice model? When people are dissatisfied, they either use voice, try to fix things by speaking up, hinting, nagging, asking for change, or exit, physically leaving or divorcing. Women tend to use voice first. They ask, hint, complain, hoping to resolve issues. When nothing changes, they exit. Men often don't voice dissatisfaction. They withdraw or physically leave without warning. That's why men are more likely to ghost or suddenly disappear, while women are more likely to go through official channels, filing for divorce, seeking legal separation. Now, add the influence of social media. The grass is greener effect intensifies. Women see curated snapshots of other couples, romantic getaways, loving captions, surprise gifts. If her relationship feels dull or stale, comparison makes her feel cheated, as if everyone else has it better. That fuels dissatisfaction, making her more eager to leave. So does this mean men are doomed? Not necessarily. Men who develop emotional intelligence, commit to genuine communication, and show consistent presence often find themselves in the small percentage of relationships where divorce rates are minimized. When they give women what they truly crave, emotional engagement, respect, validation, they can build resilient, fulfilling partnerships. And after the breakup, women often report higher satisfaction post-divorce. They rebuild, rediscover themselves, and sometimes even thrive. Men, meanwhile, may struggle with loneliness, loss of identity, or routines that no longer serve them. It's as if women leave not just to escape, but to grow. Men tend to stay out of fear of change or discomfort. That fundamental difference in approach explains why the gap in divorce filings is so striking. Think of marriage as a garden or a fortress. A man might see marriage as a fortress. Once built, it's meant to stand firm. A woman, however, sees it as a garden. If the flowers stop blooming, the beauty fades, and she might decide to walk away. When the emotional or physical growth stops, she pulls up roots and leaves the fortress behind, seeking a space where she can flourish once more. Understanding all this doesn't mean assigning blame, but recognizing the complex, layered nature of human relationships. It's about seeing patterns, understanding needs, and acknowledging that both partners have roles to play in either sustaining or ending a relationship. The more we understand the underlying truths, biological, emotional, societal, the better equipped we are to navigate love, loss, and perhaps better relationships in the future.